The showroom was full that afternoon. Customers walking between shining tractors. Salesmen explaining horsepower. Coffee machines humming in the corner. When he walked in, no one stopped talking. But a few heads turned. Dust on his boots. Grease on his cuffs. Hands that looked like they had built something, not bought it. "I'm here about your pulling model," he said. A few nearby customers glanced over. The corporate manager stepped forward, tablet in hand. "That model starts at 80,000. He said it loud enough for others to hear. A couple standing nearby paused to listen. The farmer nodded once. "And the base version?" The manager didn't lower his voice. "We don't really sell base versions for competition." A salesman near the glass window looked outside and chuckled. "Is that your tractor on the trailer?" Several customers leaned to see. Old paint. Rust near the wheel well. No logo. No shine. One man laughed softly. "That thing wouldn't even move the sled." The manager smiled politely. "With respect, this isn't a restoration shop. We build machines that win." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was heavy. People watching. Waiting. The farmer looked around the showroom. At the polished floors. At the perfect lighting. At the machines that looked expensive even standing still. Then he smiled. Not angry. Not embarrassed. Just certain. He turned toward the glass door. Before stepping out, he said one thing, calm enough that everyone had to lean in to hear it. "Good. Now when I beat you, it won't be with your name on the hood." The glass door shut behind him. Inside, the laughter slowly faded back into sales talk. Engines. Financing. Delivery dates. Outside, the parking lot was quieter. Wind pushed dust across the asphalt. His old tractor sat on the trailer behind his truck. Faded red paint. Dents along the side panel. A hood that had been opened and closed 1,000 times. He stood there for a long moment. Not looking angry. Not looking embarrassed. Just thinking. He ran his hand slowly across the tractor's hood. The metal was warm from the sun. 80,000, he muttered softly. That number didn't hurt him. What hurt him was the certainty in the manager's voice. "We build machines that win." He climbed into his truck, started the engine, pulled out of the showroom lot. But he didn't drive home. Not yet. Instead, he took the long road. The one that passed the county pool arena. The place where banners were already hanging for next month's championship. He slowed as he drove by. Big names. Big sponsors. Pictures of tractors with polished chrome and custom paint. He parked across the road. Sat there, watching workers prepare the track. He remembered last year. He had entered with the same tractor. Didn't win. Didn't embarrass himself either. But he noticed something no one else did. When the winning tractors launched, their power didn't sound smoother. It sounded balanced, clean, controlled. That wasn't about money. That was about understanding the machine. He looked back at his tractor, then back at the track. Inside the showroom, they saw rust. He saw potential. He drove home at sunset. His farm wasn't large. No massive barns. No shiny equipment lined up in rows. Just one workshop behind the house. Lights still worked. Tools still hung where they always had. He backed the trailer in slowly. Shut off the truck. Silence. Then he walked to the workshop door. Opened it. Turned on the light. Dust floated in the air. He rolled the tractor inside. Closed the door. Locked it. Not dramatically. Just quietly. He grabbed a notebook from the workbench. Opened to a blank page. And wrote one sentence. Beat them with what they can't buy. He didn't need $80,000. He needed precision. He needed torque balance. He needed weight distribution. And he had something else they didn't. Time. For the next 3 hours, he didn't touch the tractor. He just studied it, measured the frame, checked alignment, examined the drivetrain. By midnight, he had already found 3 inefficiencies. Tiny ones. But in pulling, tiny differences move mountains. He stepped back, looked at the machine. "You're not scrap," he said quietly. "You're unfinished." Outside, the wind picked up. Inside the showroom across town, contracts were being signed. Sales were being celebrated. No one there thought about the man they pushed out. But in a small workshop under a single hanging bulb, something had just started. Not anger, not revenge. Focus. And that focus was far more dangerous than emotion. He picked up a wrench. And finally, began. The next morning, he didn't start with the engine. That's what everyone expects. More horsepower. Bigger turbo. Louder exhaust. That's what money buys. He started with weight. He rolled a scale under each tire. Measured distribution. Front to rear. Left to right. It wasn't terrible. But it wasn't perfect. And perfect is what wins pulls. He removed the front weights first. Not all of them. Just enough to change the launch angle. Then he stepped back and visualized the sled chain tightening. He'd watched enough pulls to know. Most tractors lose before they even move. They lift wrong. Grip wrong. Burn torque too early. He wasn't going to overpower them. He was going to outlast them. By noon, parts of the tractor were scattered across the workshop floor. The hood off. Panels removed. Axle exposed. He didn't rush. He measured. Adjusted. Measured again. In town, word had already spread. Old man tried to buy a pulling model yesterday. They sent him out. Good. These competitions aren't for hobbyists. The showroom manager laughed when someone mentioned it. People like that think effort replaces engineering. Back in the workshop, he replaced the clutch plate. Not a new one. A modified one. He shaved weight off the flywheel. Rebalanced it manually. Adjusted engagement timing. Every change was small. But every small thing added up. By evening, grease covered his hands. His back hurt. His savings were almost gone. $500 didn't stretch far. So he improvised. Machined his own brackets. Reinforced the rear hitch. Shifted mounting points by millimeters. Millimeters matter. On the third night, he addressed the engine. Not to increase power. To clean delivery. He recalibrated fuel timing. Adjusted airflow. Smoothed the throttle response. He wasn't building something louder. He was building something smarter. A week passed. Then 2. The tractor didn't look different. Still old paint. Still faded. If anything, it looked worse. Panels scratched from being removed and reinstalled. But under the hood, it wasn't the same machine. Late one night, he shut off the engine after a test run. The sound was different. Not aggressive. Confident. He stepped down slowly. Wiped his hands on a rag. Looked at the tractor under the dim shop light. "You don't need their name," he said quietly. "You just need your moment." Across town, the showroom had just announced their entry list for the championship pull. 3 factory-sponsored machines. Brand new. Custom-tuned. Crowds were already talking about who would win. No one mentioned the old tractor. No one mentioned the man they removed from the showroom. They assumed he had disappeared. They assumed wrong. Because on the morning registration opened, a quiet name appeared on the list. No sponsor, no brand, no company backing, just a name, and a machine they thought they had already judged. This time, he wasn't coming to ask questions. He was coming to answer one. On the track, registration morning was louder than usual. Engines being unloaded, trailers backing in, sponsors setting up banners along the fence. Polished chrome reflected the sun. Fresh paint gleamed. Brand logos covered hoods like trophies already claimed. Then a quieter sound rolled into the lot. An older engine. Steady. Unrushed. Heads turned before they even realized why. The same tractor. Same faded paint. Same worn tires. No logo. No shine. He parked in the far corner. Not hiding. Just not performing. Two drivers standing near a brand-new pulling machine recognized him immediately. That's the guy from the showroom. No way he actually came back. A mechanic laughed. Maybe he misunderstood. This isn't a practice day. He climbed down from his truck slowly, checked the chains, unhooked the trailer. No rush. No drama. The officials noticed too. One of them walked over. You again? He nodded once. You know the requirements. I read them carefully, he replied calmly. The official circled the tractor, looked under the hood, checked the hitch height, measured wheelbase. It passed. Barely. That machine won't survive a full pull, the official said quietly. He didn't respond. He just climbed into the seat. The draw for pull order began. Big names went first. Crowd favorites. The sponsored machines. Engines roared. Dirt flew. Crowd cheered. Distances were strong. Impressive. The showroom's flagship tractor set the early mark. The announcer's voice carried across the arena. Now that's engineering. Applause rolled through the stands. Then his name was called. A pause followed. Not from the officials. From the crowd. Some people recognized him. Most didn't. But the ones who did smiled. The sled was reset. He rolled forward slowly. The engine didn't scream. It hummed. Chain tightened. Flag dropped. He didn't slam the throttle. He eased into it. The tractor moved. Steady. 10 feet. 20. 30. The front wheels lifted, but not wildly. Controlled. The crowd quieted slightly. At 50 feet, some of the early laughter faded. At 70, a few people leaned forward. At 90, the engine tone changed. Not struggling. Digging. Balanced torque. Clean power delivery. At 110 feet, the distance marker flashed past the previous leader. The announcer hesitated. He's still moving. The showroom manager, standing near the fence, stopped smiling. At 130 feet, the sled finally slowed him. He let off the throttle gently. The tractor rolled to a stop. Silence. Then the distance was announced. It wasn't just first place. It was dominant. A murmur spread across the arena. How? That thing's old. What did he do to it? He didn't celebrate. Didn't wave. He simply turned the tractor around. Drove back calmly. Parked. Climbed down. The showroom manager was already walking toward him. Not laughing this time. Where did you get that engine tuned? He wiped his hands slowly. Same place you told me I didn't belong. The manager blinked. That machine isn't factory. No, he agreed. It's better. The second round was about to begin. And now, they weren't laughing anymore. By the time the second round started, the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't loud anymore. It was tense. The sponsored drivers who had been joking earlier were now quiet, standing near their machines, watching him. Because in pulling, first round can be luck. Second round proves it wasn't. The sled was made heavier. Track surface slightly adjusted. Grip reduced. This is where expensive machines usually dominate. This is where horsepower separates from hope. His name was called again. This time, no one laughed. He rolled forward. Same slow pace. Same steady engine note. The chain tightened. Flag dropped. This time he launched slightly stronger. Not aggressive. Precise. The tractor moved. Clean. Controlled. The front wheels lifted just enough. Not dramatic. Not wild. Perfect balance. At 40 feet, dirt sprayed in tight lines behind the tires. At 80 feet, the sled dug harder. One of the sponsored drivers muttered, "He shouldn't still be pulling." At 100 feet, the crowd was silent. At 120, the engine didn't scream. It held. Deep torque. Even delivery. No wasted spin. No panic throttle. The sled slowed him near 150 feet. He eased off. Let it settle. Distance announced. Even farther than the first run. Now it wasn't surprise. It was reality. The scoreboard placed him at the top. Clear lead. No debate. The showroom manager removed his sunglasses. Walked closer to the fence. Studied the tractor like he was seeing it for the first time. That old paint. That simple hood. That machine they had called scrap. It wasn't overpowering them. It was outthinking them. Final pull order was reversed for the championship run. He would go last, meaning everyone else had to try and beat his mark first. One by one, the sponsored machines went again. Louder. More aggressive. One spun out early. One overlifted and lost traction. One pushed hard but stalled just short. Each run ended the same way. Short of his distance. By the time his final turn came, the sun was lower. Dust hung in the air. The crowd wasn't mocking anymore. They were waiting. The announcer's voice was different now. And returning to the track, the tractor everyone's been talking about today. He rolled forward. Come. No sponsor banners. No pit crew adjustments. No drama. Just him. And the machine they tried to remove. The flag dropped. This time he committed. Throttle steady. Torque deep. Balance exact. The sled fought harder than before. But the tractor didn't fight the track. It read it. Adjusted to it. Pulled through it. At 150 feet, he matched his best. At 160, the crowd gasped. At 170, the sled finally won. But it didn't matter. The number was final. Unmatched. Unquestionable. The arena erupted. Not with laughter. With respect. He rolled back slowly. Shut off the engine. Climbed down. The showroom manager was already there. Different expression now. "You ever consider partnering?" he asked carefully. "We could put our name on that machine." He looked at him quietly, then glanced at the tractor. "No," he said. "You already told me where I belonged." The manager swallowed. "That was a misunderstanding." "No," he replied calmly. "That was clarity." He walked past him, toward the trophy table. The old tractor behind him no longer looked old. It looked earned. And the man they once waved off the track was now the standard everyone else would measure against. The trophy wasn't large, just polished metal on a wooden base. But when they handed it to him, it felt heavier than anything the showroom could sell. Applause rolled across the arena. Not loud and explosive. Deep. Earned. He didn't lift the trophy high. He just held it. Looked at it once. Then placed it gently on the hood of his tractor. The showroom manager pushed through the small crowd. This time, he didn't bring a tablet. Didn't bring a salesman. He came alone. "Listen," he began carefully. "We were impressed today." He paused, choosing his words. "What you did out there, that wasn't luck." The farmer wiped dirt from his hands. "Luck doesn't measure weight distribution," he said quietly. The manager forced a small smile. "We'd like to make you an offer." He continued quickly. "Sponsorship. Branding. A custom model in your name. We can replicate what you built, mass produce it." The crowd nearby went silent again. This wasn't a joke anymore. This was business. "We'll pay you," the manager added. "A lot more than $500. He didn't react to the number. He reacted to the tone. It was different from the showroom. Different from that afternoon. But not different enough. "You don't want what I built," he said calmly. "We can reverse engineer it." He shook his head. "You can reverse engineer parts." He looked back at the track. "You can't reverse engineer patience." The manager hesitated. "Then what do you want?" The question wasn't sarcastic. It was genuine. He took a slow breath. "I want a space." The manager frowned. "A space? In your showroom? For machines like this?" He rested his hand on the old hood. "Used tractors. Rebuilt. Affordable." The manager blinked. "That's not our market." He looked at him steadily. "It will be." Silence stretched between them. In the stands, people were still talking about the distance he pulled. Some replaying it on their phones. The manager followed his gaze to the crowd. "They love winners," he muttered. "They love underdogs," the farmer corrected. "And there are more of them." The manager thought for a long moment. Because today wasn't just a race loss. It was a perception shift. If people started believing they didn't need $80,000 to compete, that would change things. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked carefully. "A section in your showroom," he repeated. "Machines rebuilt to compete. Sold at fair prices." He looked directly into his eyes. "No more laughing at boots." The words landed. Harder than any insult. The manager glanced at the tractor again. At the crowd still circling it. At the drivers studying it. At the trophy sitting quietly on faded paint. "You'd help design it?" he asked. He nodded once. "And train others?" The manager extended his hand slowly. "For partnership?" He didn't take it immediately. He let the silence sit. Let the moment breathe. Then he shook it. Not as someone asking permission. As someone setting terms. The crowd didn't know what was being discussed. They only saw two men talking. One who had everything. One who had been told he had nothing. And now, they looked equal. But the real shift wasn't in that handshake. It was in what the manager understood for the first time. Winning isn't about price. It's about purpose. And purpose can't be purchased. That night, as the arena emptied, he loaded the tractor back onto the trailer. The trophy sat beside him in the truck. Not flashy. Not oversized. But permanent. He started the engine. And drove home. Not faster. Not louder. Just steady. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something the showroom never planned for. And something they could no longer ignore. 3 months later, the showroom looked different. Not completely. The polished floors were still there. The high-end models still stood under bright lights. The sales team still wore pressed shirts and practiced smiles. But near the back wall, a new section had appeared. No neon banners. No oversized sponsor logos. Just a simple sign. Built to compete. Under it stood 3 tractors. Used. Rebuilt. Modified with purpose. Not flashy. Focused. The first one sold in 2 days. The second before the end of the week. By the end of the month, there was a waiting list. Farmers who couldn't afford $80,000 could now afford a chance. And that changed everything. The showroom manager watched it happen quietly. Customers who used to walk straight toward the newest model now stopped in the back first. They asked about torque balance, about weight placement, about drivetrain tuning. They asked questions the showroom had never been asked before, because winning had been redefined. It wasn't about owning the most expensive machine anymore. It was about understanding it. The old farmer didn't move into an office. He didn't wear branded jackets. He didn't stand on stages. He stayed in the workshop behind the showroom, teaching, explaining, showing young mechanics how to listen to an engine instead of just upgrading it. He never talked about the day he was removed from the track. He didn't need to. Everyone knew. One afternoon, the same official who once waved him off the arena walked into the showroom. He stood quietly near the rebuilt section, ran his hand across one of the hoods. "You changed this place," the official said. He smiled slightly. "No," he replied. "I reminded them." Outside, another pull season was starting, and something unusual was happening. More independent tractors were entering. More rebuilt machines. More drivers who didn't have sponsors, but had skill. At the first event of the season, 3 of the top 5 pulls came from tractors built in that small workshop. The crowd noticed. The announcers noticed. The industry noticed. The showroom's newest premium model still sold. But not because it was expensive. Because now it had to prove itself. Standards had shifted. That night, after closing hours, the manager walked into the workshop. "I was wrong," he said simply. The farmer looked up from a half-open gearbox. "Yes," he replied calmly. No anger. No bitterness. Just truth. The manager nodded. "I thought price was power." He wiped his hands slowly. "Price buys parts." He looked directly at him. "Power comes from people." Silence filled the workshop. The kind that feels earned. Later that evening, he drove home again. The same truck. The same trailer. The same old tractor, still faded, still scratched. He had refused to repaint it. Refused to polish away its story. Because rust had never been the problem. Arrogance had. As he turned onto the dirt road toward his farm, the sunset painted the sky orange. He didn't think about trophies. Didn't think about partnership deals. He thought about that first afternoon in the showroom. The laughter. The dismissal. The sentence. "We build machines that win." He smiled slightly. Because now, they did. Just not the way they thought. The old tractor rolled into the barn one more time. Engine off. Silence. Not the silence of rejection. The silence of completion. They tried to remove him from the race. They tried to define where he belonged. They were right about one thing. He didn't belong there. He belonged ahead of them. And that difference changed the entire track.